You're listening to the Black Eagles podcast with Sinan and Kaan Bayazit.
Ahmet Dursun Sergen aldı. Sergen Bülent yan yana. Sergen Bülent. Sergen. Yanında Tümer var. Tümer'e doğru atış kaybetti. Tümer topu aldı. Sergen aldı. Gol! Gol! Gol! Sergen attı. Sergen attı. Şampiyonluk geldi. Sergen attı. Şampiyonluk geldi.
İbrahim'in pası. Roma. Şimdi Ahmet. İkinci gole gidiyor Beşiktaş. Ahmet.
Welcome back, everybody. Episode 28 of the Black Eagles podcast. Sinan here, live from New York City, as always. And today I am Kaanless, or half Kaanless, if you will. Kaan Bayazit is actually out enjoying himself in Germany, I believe. But luckily, I did manage to record a conversation of ours from yesterday regarding the transfer window. We decided we would have a kind of final, conclusive roundup of the transfer window, put our 2 cents in after Can Okar did that in our last episode. He took more of a financial angle. But we decided to wrap it up and kind of talk about it more from the podcast's perspective, I suppose. But before I get into that, of course, the major news here today is that we're coming off a victory. Beşiktaş, at home against Yeni Malatyaspor, came out victorious, 2-1. And it was, look, was it a great game? No. Was it a good game? Probably also no. But we won. And I would be hypocritical to always be the person to say, this game was a must-win for the ones that we don't pick, for the ones that we lose points on. For the Bursa match or the Antalya match where we said losing points here was unforgivable. We had to win this one. Well, this too was one of those games where you had to win it. And you know, you're not always gonna have your best match. It's not always gonna be a 10 out of 10, rating. The important thing here is that we got the 3 points. And we did it by and large without, no pieces missing here. But we can officially say that this is our first match with a number 10 in place. With Lens out there and Quaresma. I personally would have preferred Lens and Babel, but I'll talk about that when I get into game analysis. Before I get started, first and foremost, I want to give a very sturdy, thorough, hearty congratulations to a Mr. Adem Büyük, who in only a tidy 64 minutes managed to make himself out to be a complete cartoon villain, vile henchman, the type of player who you would never want to see on your team. He's in an echelon that for me is up there with the likes of Emre Belözoğlu, Volkan Demirel. I'd be remiss to mention, of course, Burak Yilmaz. Adem Büyük. I think, congratulations there. Oh yeah, Volkan Sen. He's another one of those guys I really don't want to see in a Beşiktaş shirt ever. Adem Büyük, congratulations to you, my good man. In a short outing, you managed to make yourself completely unlikable and irredeemable. So yeah, shouts to you. Definitely, since I don't get to give Kaan an applause today, I think you get the applause, the welcome. Thanks. Anyway, let's get to the program here. It was an eventful match, I'll say that much. Even if the scoreline doesn't reflect it, and even if it wasn't our best match, I'll run you through it. Basically, it started off slow to sort of follow up on something Kaan has been saying throughout the season thus far. They were getting away with lots of these little fouls that may have skirted the line. far as getting yellows, but as they started to accumulate, you'd think a yellow or two would be pulled out just to sort of get the game under control and just dissuade them from playing in that way. They did get a couple yellows in the first half. In the 20th minute, their defender Arturo Mina, got a yellow card. And then in the 37th minute, Issam Shebak, I don't know how you pronounce that, the Moroccan defender also was carded. But even that seemed maybe, too little too late. They'd gotten away with too much. They'd slowed down the game effectively as such. They'd, made it clear that they were going to get away with these sort of persistent, and often I think even quite dangerous little fouls. But anyway, that was what it was. They sort of killed most of the first half in that way. There weren't a lot of chances. The chances that did come were interesting in that Ljajic, our new number 10, was involved in all of them. We were way over-reliant on the long ball, as we've been. Pepe, again, guilty of launching them up a little too quickly, a little too frequently. But the highlight, I suppose, of the half was seeing Ljajic perform well and distributing the ball in particular. He had, I'd say, 3 moments in the first half that were promising. One where Lenz distributed the ball to him on a nice little flick, and he was a little slow to react, could have reacted quicker and maybe had a shot on goal. But then he put Lenz on shortly thereafter, and Lenz muffed it, and it was a really brilliant kind of through ball behind the defense, which he did actually a few times in the match. He set up Quaresma on a similar ball later on in the first half that Quaresma actually got a nice shot off, but the keeper stopped it. But it should be said that Yeni Malatya's keeper, Ertaç Özbir, was pretty good throughout the match, honestly, and he kept them in it. He had a few decent saves, but he really wasn't tested much. That was it for the first half, except at the very end of the half, we had a scare, and Karius made a nice, confident save on exactly the type of scenario where we would have let in a goal. We were kind of sleeping. The half was coming to a close. It was extra time, and Karius really did come through. So we went into the half 0-0. The only substitute at the half was taking Jermaine Lenz out for Ryan Babel. Questionable, not so much in terms of bringing Babel in. Clearly the attack was not quite connecting, but I would have maybe taken out Quaresma, honestly. He was errant. He didn't seem to be connecting. Jermaine Lenz, also wasn't having a stellar half, I would say, but all in all, at least he was active. He was on the receiving end and on the giving end of 2 of our big chances in the half. So that was maybe a little disappointing, but sure enough, in the 52nd minute, it was Quaresma with another assist, and he's done this throughout the season. He didn't really stand out much in the game, didn't really play at his best, but as he does, puts them in when they matter. On a corner kick, he set up Pepe on a header. She blasted upwards into the goal. It was a very nice header from Pepe, and that's his 5th goal in a league match and 5 league matches. He's continued his tear. Then shortly thereafter, in the 57th minute, Gary Medel earned a very questionable yellow card. I was personally very, angered by it, honestly. As I had said earlier, Yeni Malatya had been fouling us throughout the first half without any kind of penalty, or without enough anyway, until they finally did get a yellow card, way too late, as I said. But then Gary Medel earned a yellow card for a very questionable contact. So that seemed dubious in and of itself. And of course it would come back to hurt us. Then in the 61st minute, Adem Büyük finally earned himself a yellow card for probably what would have been his 7,312th little foul. He was subbed out in the 66th minute for Mikhail Pereira, French midfielder. Then in the 73rd minute, we had Tolgay Arslan sub in for Quaresma. And in the 74th minute, conveniently, Gary Medel got red carded out of the match. Probably earned the yellow card in this case, but that was his second. He saw his marching orders. And so, Beşiktaş, 1-0 up, was down a man. Naturally, because how else could this happen? In the 79th minute, we saw Mitchell Donald, I believe was his name. Yeah, Mitchell Donald, Dutch midfielder, sub out for Ahmed Yildiz. And the assumption would be that they'd be pressing. But of course, that was not exactly how it would work out in the end. Beşiktaş struck on the counter. Babel on the opposite end of a very nice cross from Negredo, who otherwise had a pretty poor game up till that point. That put Beşiktaş up 2-0, despite being a man down. That would pretty much set the course for the night. In the 83rd minute, Caner Erkin received a yellow card. In the 89th minute, Guilherme scored a kind of interesting goal, deflected up off of the line. Karius came out to make a save. Maybe he shouldn't have come out for it and should have stayed at the goal line. Probably even still, I think Pepe got in the way, so he couldn't come back properly. Either way, the goal kind of dropped down to them. We had three guys on the goal line, and it popped. One of them defended, I believe it was Vida, but then it popped back up off of Guilherme. It looked like it probably hit some arm, but I think their final ruling through VAR was that it was incidental, and that his arm was by his side. It still seemed odd to me. I feel like on a goal, I didn't think that was, well, anyway, it counted. We were only up 2-1, a man down, and of course, they were on the attack. They did attack. There were 6 minutes of extra time. Shortly before extra time began, they subbed out Murat Yildirim for Mustafa Eskihelac in the midfield. And we, in the 90th minute, subbed Negredo out for Adriano on the left side. Of course, at that point, we were just trying to hold that 1-goal lead, which we did. At the 96th minute, they called the match. It was probably closer to the 97th, in fact, but Beşiktaş won 2-1, got to 3 points, and at the end of the day, finished in third place in the standings of the Turkish Super League. But of course, that may not last for long. Başakşehir has a game in hand and are at 9 points. Beşiktaş has 10. Konya has 8 points with a game in hand as well. So tomorrow, Başakşehir and Konya could theoretically pass us, moving us down into 5th. Trabzon is on 7 points, as well as Antalya, both who have matches tomorrow. Trabzon with a nice victory would pass us on goal differential, putting us into 6th theoretically. Antalya would need a really big win, so that's really not a concern, I don't believe. Başakşehir has Antalya as well, so only one of them could get those 3 points. Trabzon is on the road in Alanya, and Konya is hosting Fener tomorrow. So, the most likely outcome is probably like 4th place come the end of the match day, unless Başakşehir is surprised by Antalya. But again, just one step at a time. We got the 3 points we needed. As for analysis, again, I don't want to spend too much time here. I do want to kind of cut to the sort of transfer review that Kaan and I did. But briefly, I'll do a highlight and a low light. As far as the low light goes, that first half was quite rough. Quite a few players stood out as being poor. Among them, Negredo, who I already mentioned. Ozan was really poor, I thought. Couldn't really string his passes together well. Kind of ghosted as well, which is even worse probably. Who else? I mean, really everyone was pretty bad, to be honest. Quaresma was really a mess. His crosses were really off for most of the half. Again, if not for that assist, I think he'd be the low light. Same thing could be said for Negredo up until the assist, which was actually quite nice for Babel. He would have been a low light, I think. But so I think this week I've got to give it to Ozan. He can't ghost us like that. On the flip side, seeing Ljajic operate really did, for me, emphasize that Ozan is a central midfielder, and he is, I think, almost in the kind of Carlos Valderrama mold where he can ghost, not ghost, but he can be forgotten about, and that can be to his benefit because he has the talent and the creativity where, when he sort of slides in out of nowhere and does, he can create really interesting things. He can do great for the team. That was not the case today, though. Although, again, one has to remember that this is our first match as a full unit with an actual 10 in the way of Ljajic. With that said, I think there was a lot of positive out there in terms of the ability Ljajic showed almost immediately to make an impact with his touch. I think he had probably 3 nice through balls by the end of the match, I should say, that really stood out. At least I think 2 of them should have been goals. But none of them were, so he didn't have any assists. Of course, he didn't score, but that's okay. It was his first match, and he showed a lot of promise. That said, he would not be the highlight for me today. Today's highlight for me would have to be Loris Karius, who was frankly called on far too much. Yeni Malatyaspor should not be putting as much pressure on our defense as they did. But with that said, he did his job, and he came through with a few clutch saves by the end of the match. Some I've heard people question whether he had a role to play in their goal by coming out, and I mean he came out and made a great save. And the general inability of Beşiktaş's defenders and midfielders to connect muffed that up and gave them a second chance, which ultimately was converted. Although the defenders themselves got back and covered the line pretty well there. They maybe even got lucky to some extent. But yeah, Loris Karius really shined today in this win. Definitely secured us the victory. In his first, it should be noted, in his very first home appearance at Vodafone Park in competitive play. So shout out to Loris Karius on a great performance. Besides that, there wasn't a lot of positive, quite frankly. Even Ljajic, despite the nice touches he did put on, could have probably. I don't even want to criticize his play, honestly. He was pretty good. But yeah, that's about all I have to say for the match. Really, we got the 3 points, and that's all you can really hope for in these situations, especially while you're still settling as a unit, still finding yourselves, still incorporating new pieces into the lineup tactically and positionally and all that. So yeah, we can never complain about 3 points at the end of the day. Yeah, and you got to win the ugly ones too. They can't all be joyous, festive occasions, and that's the case here for sure. Now, with all of that said, without further ado, let me cut to my talk with Kaan. We decided to round it up, as I said earlier, to round up the whole transfer window. It seemed fitting. It seemed like we should do that. If you will indulge us for a moment and enjoy our musings. All right. Well, Kaan Bayazit is here magically through the, and I'll break the fourth wall down for us, through the miracles of post-production and good planning and organization. Kaan Bayazit has risen from the I don't know what you call it, from the ether. And he's joining me for a quick review, which we pre-recorded, of course. So hopefully, I've already triumphantly gone over our great victory against Yeni Malatyaspor, but I'll knock on wood just in case.
Jinx, man. Don't do
Because it's pre-recorded. But so Kaan, this is great. We get the opportunity to use the applause track. Kaan Bayazit, folks. He's back. Kaan, what do you have to say?
Thank you for the warm reception. Yeah, so we're going to talk a little bit about our transfer window because we've been promising that for a week or for 2 weeks, I guess, for this international break. But it's been busy. It's been crazy busy. I've been having to do a lot of interviews for our Europa League preview. And then yesterday I spoke to John Okar, and that episode is already live. So yesterday is on Thursday, so we're recording this on Friday. So the match is tomorrow on Saturday, and I was under the impression it was on Sunday because I'm going to be in Germany tomorrow. So there's unfortunately, I don't think I'm going to be able to watch the game unless I can. I could probably sneak out my phone and try and watch it on there.
Get the old app out, yeah.
Yeah, but I don't know. I'm not 100% sure if I'm going to be able to watch it, which is a bummer because I'm really looking forward to this game. Adam Laic hopefully getting his first start. Karius, of course, and their first game at that Vodafone Park. Well, technically for Karius it's his second because he had the friendly match against Altinorde over the past week on Sunday, I guess, which was
maybe mention, yeah.
It was a fun game.
Yeah.
I thought we got to see Guven Yalchin score his first goal.
Yeah. And make a tidy little performance for us,
And who scored the first goal? Oh yeah, Negredo scored the first goal. And I thought Karius was great again. I thought he was really good. And I even spoke about it briefly with Can and just the fact that, he inspires confidence, I think. Something we haven't had in a goalkeeper since Fabri, which is not that long ago. But maybe even a little bit more so than Fabri, perhaps. But let's get into all of that. Let's delve into all of that. The meat and potatoes, boo.
Yeah. So yes, so in a way this is nice because it's like we can officially wrap up the transfer window, which this is our 28th episode that's being recorded here, and I'd say maybe like 25 of them were by and large consumed by transfer rumor talk. So we can wrap it all up officially. Put in our final 2 cents on what we think about it because we never really did look at the window as a whole, not together in our usual format here. So yeah, it's a good chance to do that. So Kaan, I'll give you the mic first here. Let's give it out of a 10. What are you giving it? What are you ranking this window of ours?
If I wouldn't be looking at the timing, I'd probably give it a 7.5 or even an 8. I think it was a decent window. Well, let's call it a 7.5 because I think a striker we could have done well with a striker. But I think a 7.5 would have been my vote if the Karius and the Laic transfers happened a little bit earlier. But I'm going to go with a 6.5 because of the timing.
6.5. Okay.
Yeah.
A little, in the name of a good education, right, where you're strict and you're grading people fairly but firmly, constructively, that's a solid grade. And I'd probably be a little bit more charitable. I'm gonna go ahead and give them. God, I hadn't even considered time when I was gonna say a 7.5. But you're right with the timing and the delay and the fact that yet again we're kind of well into the season and we've dropped points perhaps unnecessarily, and in the Turkish league now, it's you have to say that every point matters. You never even know who will be competing for at the end of the season, or what place in the standings we'll be competing for, honestly. But hopefully it's for the championship. And, the points we've dropped are not going to help in that regard. So I'll bump it down to a 7. I'm still going to be a little more charitable than a 6.5. But I'll break into the analysis here. My genuine feeling is that we did not make a huge leap forward by any means. And because a leap forward would have meant actually upgrading at another position rather than just replacing pieces. But I would say we did perhaps take a step forward in that we've replaced Talisca, who was, all credit to him, great player, and on the right team, perhaps even a world-class player someday. But and in the right system, I should say. But for what we need, what Beşiktaş has needed for some time, I think that we've maybe taken a step forward with Ljajic, because from all that we've heard from all the various sources, from the various illustrious guests of ours, it sounds like we've got a slightly more well-rounded, or I should say less averse to distributing the ball rather than taking a shot, but at the same time who has the flair and the ability to mix it up and take wild shots and pull things out of nothing in a way that Talisca did at times for us as well. So, in all, I think we may have taken a step forward in that regard. Again, we'll see. But yeah, so I'm going to say a 7.
Okay, that's the same number as Jan also gave this window the other day. So, and of course, his analysis also included financial, the financial part of things, which is also, I think, a positive to see. That from a financial expert's point of view,
great minds,
it was a decent window.
Great minds.
But let's quickly run over the transfer window quickly. I know I already did it, I think, in the last episode, but I'm just going to do it again because I like
in one
myself.
solid list. Because I think even in that one you didn't really just read through them. Read through the list.
There's 7 new players that got taken in. I'm not counting youth players that got promoted. So Jermaine Lens, his deal was made permanent for 4.10 million euros. Adam Ljajic on a loan with an obligation to buy for 6.5 million, and his loan fee is 1.25 million euros. Then number 3 is Loris Karius. He was brought in on a 1 million loan fee for 2 years, so that's probably going to be 2 million then, I assume. And then 8 million obligation to buy after those 2 years are up. Then there's Umut Nair, who we paid a compensation fee of 350,000 to Osmanlıspor for. Dorukhan Tokus on a free transfer from Eskişehirspor. Güven Yalçın on a free transfer from Bayer Leverkusen. And then Enzo Rocco on a free transfer from Cruz Azul. In terms of departures, Fabri left for 6 million to Fulham. Duško Tosic left for 4.5 million to Guangzhou of China. Matej Mitrovic left for 3.5 million to Club Brugge of Belgium. Then Pedro Franco left on a free. He joined America de Cali. Denis Boyko, he joined Dynamo Kiev on a free. Umut Nair was loaned to Bursa Spor. Orkan Çınar was loaned to Adana Demirspor. Aras Özbilis was loaned to Willem II. Atin Şenukan returned from his loan to Leipzig, and Anderson Talisca returned from his loan to Benfica. And he, of course, has since joined... I think Shanghai, no, not Shanghai Shenhua. I don't know, some Chinese club. So those are the transfers incoming and outgoing. In terms of expenditures, we spent 6.6 million euros and we gained 14 million euros. So we're 7.4 million in positive this past transfer window. So that's good.
Yeah.
And I think what we really did was, like you said, we kind of replaced what we lost. We lost we lost 3 starters in Fabri, Tosic, and Talisca, and we replaced Fabri with Karius. We replaced Talisca with Ljajic, and I guess we replaced Tosic with, in essence, really with Domagoj Vida.
Yeah,
but
we doubly replaced him.
So we already prematurely replaced him, but we also brought in, of course, Enzo Rocco. I guess you could see Rocco as a replacement for either Tosic or Mitrovic.
I want to actually quickly, while we're on this, I want to just briefly make a mention of a point you guys brought up in the last episode that I wanted to dispute. And it may have been John, actually, who made the point, but I do not agree that Domingos Vida and Pepe aren't a good pairing. I want to be on the record by disputing that. You did, I think, as well, yeah, but I also wanted to just argue, because I actually feel that in a lot of ways, Pepe is a much better partner than Lovren was for him in Croatia, and has all the abilities Lovren does plus many others. So I don't see at all why they couldn't be a good pairing just at a base level, and B, actually, I think I may have said this early on, but I think they should absolutely be the best central back pairing maybe in Turkish football history.
Yeah, plus I didn't really agree with what something he said too, that they're kind of the similar types, because I don't really think they are. You know, Pepe is the tall, strong in the air type of defender, and Vida isn't that tall. Vida is more like Tosic. He's a little plucky. Bit smaller even. Yeah. He's like 184. Which isn't very tall for a defender. No. And John did say he could be slow as a tank sometimes. I think that's kind of a wrong perception people have gotten from him a little bit, because of the way that Tukara kind of dummied him against Antalya, and he looked slow there, but. I've been watching Vida for a while, because we were linked with him for a while, and I had been paying special attention to him during Croatia's games, during some of Kiev's European games and stuff like that. And he's always struck me as actually quite a very fast central defender, I should say. I just think it's not come out yet. I think his problem right now is a little bit positioning. Doesn't really know. I just think it's all about team chemistry right now with him, and I brought up that point the other day as well with John, that I just think it's a matter of they need to get used to each other. Yeah,
and I think they have, even since that initial rough stretch of where he was settling in the first couple of matches. I actually think he has settled for the most part, and like even that goal, the one goal we let up against Bursa, was probably more on Pepe, honestly, than.
Yeah, for me, that was. I think Pepe is a fantastic defender.
Yeah, and that's not a knock. Everyone lets.
Of course. I mean, every defender, you can be perfect 90 minutes every game.
And that was so against the run of play, and it kind of came out of nowhere. And I don't think he anticipated the opponent having the ability and kind of foresight to do what he did. I think maybe he underestimated his man in that moment.
Maybe. I mean, you have to keep in mind Sacco was only on for a couple of minutes at that point.
Yeah, he didn't know what he was capable of.
It's always a little difficult then for a defender to know what to expect from his direct opponent. You haven't been, rubbing shoulders all game yet.
Yeah.
So that can be a little bit tricky. But to me, that was. I mean, there were even people who were blaming Karius there, which I really don't get.
Yeah.
I mean,
we've talked about that. That's ridiculous.
I mean, the people say he should have either. If you come, you have to have the ball, but there's no chance he can get the ball because the man is coming in front of the defender and he's going to come in front of you too. So there's no chance he's going to get the ball if he comes out.
The moment where he could have sprinted out and maybe even dove out, I may have mentioned, Vida kind of crossed his path momentarily there as well. So I think it was actually not even that physically. I mean, maybe and let's also bear in mind this is his first match with the team. He'll anyway. I just wanted to make that one contention, but let's get back to the transfer stuff, Kaan. So I gave my sort of general analysis of why I bumped up your 6.5 to a 7. But so what's your general analysis of the window? You've started to touch on certain things. What do you think?
Like I said, I would have given it a 7.5 probably if it wasn't for the bad timing. Now, the thing is, we've known for a long time that Talisca wasn't going to stay. So to me, that transfer should have been dealt with a lot earlier. The deal they ultimately ended up hashing out for Laic is great. I think the conditions are perfect. You're paying $1.25 million loan fee, which really isn't all that much. And then you're paying $6.5 million permanently next year. In the similar way that we paid $4 million now for Lens. And I think $6.5 million for a player that'll still be just 27 at the time that triggers.
Yeah.
That's great. I mean, obviously, it's possible that he can have a bad season now, and that we'll be looking in 12 months. We'll be saying in 12 months, oh damn, I wish we wouldn't have spent that 6.5 on him. But really, the obligation to buy construction really is just a way to put that transfer fee on the back burner a little bit. You kind of have to look at it as a permanent transfer already.
And here's another aspect you didn't even mention there, and I think merits mention. We're likely to lose one of Babel, Quaresma. Maybe we'll finally get that sale if we're trying to make money again. Possibly. Wait, is Torre out?
Both Babel and Gökhan Töre have expiring contracts.
Yeah. So, in theory, right, well, the nice thing about Ljajic is that he provides versatility in his ability to play on the wing or in the middle. And so if things really don't pan out in the middle, it's not a wash. We say, okay, let's try you out on the wing. We have an opening now, and we just go back into the pool. Maybe we get another number 10. And that there's that Kagawa Japanese rumor that was sort of, let's not even make too much mention of it because it's really just, it needs to be fleshed out more. And maybe we'll have more by the end of the episode. But so that's another aspect of Ljajic, that he has that versatility.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, he's best either on the left or in the center. And if Babel does not extend, or if his demands are just too high, we'll have to wait and see. But you have to keep in mind, Babel is going to turn 32 this year as well. I'm all up for giving him an extension. I think he's done well at Beşiktaş, but the extension shouldn't come at any cost. I think that if the conditions are correct, if he's willing to take the same wage the next year and maybe a slight downgrade in pay the year after, and maybe make it like a 2-year extension, I'm good on that. But anything more than 2 years, I think that's a little bit excessive, unless
Given
it's like
age,
unless it's like an optional thing or something.
That would take us to 33, 34, right? I think that's about where we can wrap things up with Babel.
And that's so. I mean, in that respect, even if Ljajic ends up being our left winger next year, I think it's a great transfer on all fronts, really. He's young, he's an international, he's extremely talented, and we spoke about it with Sonia last week. He's got so many appearances in Serie A. You don't just make 200-plus appearances in Serie A at age 20. He's still only 26, He hasn't even turned 27 yet.
And 60-plus goals, come on, he's great.
He's been there, he's got 48 goals and 42 assists, so involved in 90 goals. And I'm just rehashing what we said last week already, but he's only 26, almost 27, so in 6-7 years' time, he's made more than 200 appearances in Serie A. I'm not even talking Coppa Italia or anything like that. So that's just great. I think it's a great transfer, great value. The transfer fee is good.
And look, if it doesn't pan out, right, that's like a hindsight thing. What we're judging is the transfer itself. And at this stage, given what we know of the player now, given what we need in that position, come on, it's a great move.
Exactly. I mean, if he doesn't work out, and then people will be, it's just, bad transfer, way too much money, blah, blah, blah. No, look, guys, this is for every single transfer you make is a risk, and every single transfer you make has a probability of either succeeding or failing. You have a certain probability percentage, and I think the probability percentage on Ljajic is good. I think the potential return on investment is good. There's a potential sell-on value with him, even.
For sure,
and plus his wages aren't too high and all that. From what we know, of course, those haven't been officially confirmed, but everything about that transfer is positive.
Yeah.
So I think that's really good. And like you already said, I think Anderson Talisca was an amazing talent. But we have seen, and we have said this on the podcast before, that we lacked something in midfield that Talisca wasn't giving, something that he wasn't providing as Sosa was before him, like more footballing qualities. Talisca was incredibly lethal in the box. He was very he was a special player. He could score those special goals, whether it be free kicks or popping up in the box with a header or, whatever, a long shot or he had that in him. But Leitch has that too, maybe to a lesser extent.
Maybe not,
but he
maybe
also
not
has
to the
that,
same level of consistency. But.
Yeah. But he has that play. He has the playmaking skills that Talisca lacks. He has the skill on the ball that Talisca didn't have. He has the speed, the agility, and he has the ability to just wreak havoc in a defense. And Talisca wasn't that type of player, and I think that's something we've lacked. I don't even think that Sosa was that type of player, honestly, because Sosa, he had a lot of qualities, but I don't think he was the type of player that the opponent looked towards with, oh, damn, he's going to play our defense.
Well, he strikes me, he's much more in the mold of a Sosa than Talisca, but he's like Sosa. He's like Sosa with, Sosa, it seemed like a bit of a stretch for us to move him to the 10 a little, and he fit well because of the other pieces around him. Whereas it seems like Ljajic is actually much more of a natural fit in that role. And that, that little bit of a difference maybe doesn't sound like a lot, but I think it will on the field amount to quite a bit more, because the element that he will represent a great bit more of than what Sosa did is in the attack and the ability to not necessarily even just distribute well, but even put them in the back of the net. So I think it's great.
I think I think also what you had with Sosa was he was kind of a constant. You always knew kind of what you were going to get with him. I think with Leitch, it's both a positive and a negative, but with him, you have this surprise factor. Yeah. And the fact that he's unpredictable, and that's going to be difficult for Anatolian teams to know what they're going to have to do with him, especially this first season when they don't really know what he does yet. I mean, with Quaresma, everyone knows what you have to do. You've got to put two people on him and just mark him tightly. Don't give him any space. Everyone knows him. But
this is important too.
Go ahead. Sorry.
And I think when you consider that team that Sosa was a part of versus this team that Ljajic will be a part of, it's actually, and I've sort of grazed on this point before, but it's okay that he may not have that level of consistency that Sosa did, because the talent around him is at a higher level than what Sosa was. So we wouldn't necessarily need to be so reliant on that. Again, because of the talent we have on the wings, and not just the talent we have, but even the versatility of talent. Like we have the Bao who can cut it in and do something on the attack. We have the guys who can, we have Lenz now who can speed it out on the wing. We have Quaresma who can, has the touch on the cross. We have a lot of options on the wing now and talent, and even Torre. But anyway, so with that in mind,
the only thing we don't have is the striker.
Yeah, well, and we
don't have Mario Gomez.
That's true. But again, like Larin and Negredo are now, like for me, it starts now when we can really judge them. And of course, Negredo had a bad year. Of course, Larin's had a rough start. But now the excuses are out the window. We have a 10. We have the versatility. We have the options. We have the variability. Now is where I think we can really get a glimpse of maybe a little bit more realistic view of what's left in the tank for Negredo. And hopefully he can keep up what we've seen thus far already anyway. But also the same goes for Larin. Now that he might get some distribution on the ground, I don't want to jinx it, and I'm going to knock on wood again, so that we can all hear it. But I genuinely think that is what's best suited for his game, is getting the ball on the ground and not necessarily having it crossed in. We've talked about his, maybe issues with timing on the ball and everything. So fingers crossed. I've already knocked on wood multiple times, but I really feel good. I feel good about this move. My voice is cracking a little. Yeah. I'm excited.
Yeah, me too. I mean, I think the difference between Talisca and Ljajic in terms of age is minimal. And honestly, I think Talisca was great, but
it's a fit. It's just not a fit. I don't even think we need to disparage him.
I think he wasn't a perfect fit. No.
He'll fit somewhere else perfectly, and I think good for him. I wish him the best. Yeah. I no longer. I did, momentarily have some hard feelings because of whatever, but I'm done with it. Even, man, like we're good. We're good. We don't even need him.
Yeah, I'm not even that.
Yeah, exactly. You do you, bro.
Nah, but
But let's move on.
You know, I mean, all the best to him, but let's move on. I mean, let's move to the Karius Fabri move. And I think, you know, you have your say there first, please, just to tell me what you think of this move.
It's a great move.
Or tell us.
And just along the lines of what I was saying earlier about how we didn't make any big advancements in terms of bringing in new players at positions like striker or right back or whatever. We did replace guys that were outgoing with guys that are incrementally better now. And I think Loris Karius is incrementally better than Fabri now. Incrementally insofar as I don't know. I mean, I don't want to undersell the value that Fabri has had with this team for as long as he did. He was great. He was very consistent. He was a leader in many different ways, emotionally, you know, and he backed it up with his play. I really don't want to discredit all that Fabri did, but I think technically on a very, you know, in a vacuum, I don't see how Loris Karius could not match pretty much all aspects of his game, besides maybe that mental aspect where he was very quick to jump out. But again, that's something that you can learn. And given, I mean, I don't know, you actually have educated me in regards to the fact that Fabri was quite good before coming to Beşiktaş. But I wouldn't surprise me if we've had good keeping coaches for a little while now, consistently, you know, with Murmic now and previously with Sambade, right? So it wouldn't surprise me if we have the capacity to teach that to keepers at this stage, you know, or if, you know, even if Fabri brought that with him to Beşiktaş, we've seen it for long enough, and our coaches have seen it for long enough that they might still have, you know, learned the value of maybe teaching that henceforth. So, you know, I see Loris Karius as being probably a bit better now in most facets of the game. You know, he's bigger. He shows a bit more physicality, at least, you know, with that amazing save against Bursa. And just, again, I mentioned this previously, but in slow-mo, you really see the reflex on that save as well. He's just good. I have very good feelings about Karius. And again, his age, he's quite a bit younger than Fabri was. And if he settles, 10 years from now, we could be talking about how Karius is like, you know, is he going to sign another 3-year contract and see his career out with us into his 40s type of thing? You know, because keepers can do it. Keepers can do it.
Longevity at Beşiktaş is not a, and you know, it's not but
it's
in
not
a
our strong
positive
suit
way, though. I think in recent history, because we've always been we've been selling players on in most cases, and we've been making profits, and we've been doing good business. You know, Loris Karius is the type of player, you know, either you're going to keep him for a long time or you're going to make some good money on him. That's how I see it.
Yeah.
Hopefully, I mean, let's hope he doesn't, you know, let his contract lapse and leaves on a free, because that can happen too. But I completely
tragedy.
agree. You know, Fabri, for me, best goalkeeper Beşiktaş have had since Oscar Cordoba. So, you know, really the best goalkeeper in a decade that Beşiktaş have had. And you know, I like you said, I did tell you before that in Spain he had a certain reputation already, but he had a very heavy injury. He didn't have 200 La Liga appearances at age 29. I think he barely got to like 80 or something, you know. And that just to put it into perspective with Adam Laic, who's 26 and he's already got 225 appearances.
It's pretty amazing.
And okay, Laic wasn't always a starter, but still to amass that amount of appearances is impressive.
That says something,
Karius,
for sure.
Yeah,
and with big clubs. I mean, we're talking about Roma. We're not talking about like
Roma.
You know.
And it's not like he played for Sassuolo or Frosinone. You know, I mean, yeah.
I was about to say Sassuolo, but I was like, is that commonly enough known that
No,
can
but I mean,
drop that
yeah.
one down? I was gonna make Venezia, but that's even they're like Division 3 now.
Fiorentina, Roma, big clubs.
but yeah.
Inter, he spent the season at Inter.
Yeah, loaned, but he actually played.
Yeah, 25 or
he had
so.
20 plus.
But with Fabri now, I mean, he wasn't old yet for a goalkeeper, but he was on the wrong side of 30. I mean, he's 31 years old now. And Karius only just turned 25, and it's like we said it in the Karius episode, and John said it yesterday too. I mean, if it wasn't for that terrible mistake he made in the Champions League final, that concussion he had, if it wasn't for that, we wouldn't have.
Yeah, that was very informative by John Townsend, by the way. The 26 of 30 concussion protocol. That was.
Yeah, I mean,
that was fascinating. Shout out to John Townsend.
If it wasn't for that, we wouldn't have even sniffed this guy. There would have been no possible. I mean, look how hard that Fenerbahce have tried throughout this window to get Kevin Trapp from PSG, and he's.
I just thought of something so funny, dude. 2 punches gave us 2 amazing players, probably that we would probably have no way of getting otherwise.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about, because Delio Rossi's punch on Lialic probably contributes to because again, if you look at everything in a vacuum statistically, we have no business getting this kid. He should be making a run at the Premier League or something, but at this stage, but we got him because he has this rep that's not statistically even backed of that inconsistency. I think it's mostly one of those things where you just know what's happened to him and what he's provoked out of coaches who don't necessarily have a reputation for being too emotional or anything. So I think that might contribute a lot to his reputation, unfairly even. I think
let's hold
and then
off
Sergio
on
Ramos
because,
is
I've
whacking.
learned that when I remember this when Batuhan went to Eskişehirspor. I remember very well, our mutual friend Selçuk, how he was basically saying, man, Beşiktaş didn't give this kid his dues and blah blah. And I told him, be careful. He's a handful. He's a head case. But he didn't want to believe me. A year or 2 later, he's like, yeah, you were right.
We know how that
head case. So we have to be careful with those types of statements.
That's true. Yeah. Knock on wood. Yeah. God, this is the 3rd time. I'm gonna do it audio.
Yeah, you're gonna have to implement something from the little piggies and the bad wolf or something when he's at the door.
Yeah.
But no, for sure. But with Karius, I think it's again you're getting a great quality goalkeeper and arguably more talented than Fabri. And I really don't want to say anything negative about Fabri. I love Fabri. I've got multiple shirts of him for a reason, and I don't usually get goalkeeper shirts. He's great. I love him. I hope that he's going to come back, and I think he will if the Fulham adventure doesn't work out. If he's okay with being second choice behind Karius, of course, or if we would.
Right. Or if we got 40 million euros for Karius, from a desperate Real Madrid.
Broke his. No, that's not. I'm not even gonna go there.
No, don't go there. Yeah, or how about Chelsea then? Right, since they lost Courtois. But yeah, let's keep it moving because I think the general vibe thus far has been very positive because of course we've touched on the 2 highlights of the window. But let's move into something perhaps more questionable, and that is of course Enzo Rocco. Let's begin there. I think that's probably the most questionable move, not at all in terms of his talent. I thought it was a great under-the-radar pickup. He has, again, lots of experience with a good national team that's done well in recent years, despite maybe not making the World Cup. So whatever. That's not on him, right? He's part of this next generation, actually, that's coming in for them. But the only real downside, and I say that consciously because I know people have a bad taste in their mouth about his one bad match for us, out of 2 that he's played. But I'm not even talking about that. The one negative because I don't see that as a negative, and we'll go into that later. But the negative I see is specifically that, along the lines of what John Okar was saying, did we need him? In light of not being able to or willing at a certain price or whatever it may have been, not selling Domagoj Vida, did we need to bring in Enzo Rocco? And I think the argument could be made that Tosic showed so much value despite bringing in Vida that he kind of demanded playing time, and so maybe that suggests that there's a need for variability. Maybe they felt like tactically there are times when Vida and Pepe aren't going to be a good pairing against certain tactics or individuals, perhaps, and that they wanted to have some other option in there tactically, like a bigger guy like Rocco, better in the air maybe. But I don't know. I don't know if that's the case. It seems like it was probably a case of them assuming they were going to get rid of Domagoj Vida because of all the excitement about his performance and the good performance of Croatia at large. But as a player, I love it, actually. I think it's a great move. It's a free transfer, too. So, I'm a bit torn, honestly. And I don't know. I'll turn it over to you before I go on and say anything else. Because I think, I want to leave you some room to say whatever you have to say. What are your thoughts on Rocco?
Well, I think that it was... I think you have to look at it a little bit further ahead. Now, yes, we're probably getting a foreign limitation again. We don't know any details of that. But it's at this point, it seems almost a certainty that there's going to be a new foreign limit. Now, I'm hoping it's not going to go back to that 6 or 5 even. I hope it's going to be more along the ways of 8 or 9 in the starting 11.
Or even just incentivizing, like Shenol Gunesh was talking about, maybe incentivizing playing Turks rather than limiting.
I think that would be great. Because
nice.
And that's
even not a bad idea.
I think it's interesting to talk about that. So let's put that on the back burner. Maybe we can finish the episode with talking briefly on that. I think with that in mind, is bringing in Enzo Rocco a smart thing? Maybe not, but we do have to keep in mind Pepe is in the last year of his contract. After the international game last week against, not against Croatia, but the second one they played against Italy, I think, which they won 1-0. Pepe was asked if he is going to come back to Portugal to play at club level, and he said, yes, I think so. But he also said, I still have a year of contract left with Beşiktaş. I really want to do well with them this year and this and that. But, he didn't say it outright, I'm coming back next year. I mean, it could be he could extend and he could come back the year after. You don't know. But it does seem that his long-term plans aren't at Beşiktaş. That he still has this bucket list, that he wants to go back to Porto or something. So we have to keep in mind that at the very realistic possibility that Pepe will not be with us next year. So then the question is going to be, is Alpay Çelebi, for example, is he ready? I think he showed...
He needs a couple of years, probably.
Yeah, he's from 1999, so 19, I guess. He's a great talent. I think everyone, and people who watch the youth team closely, and we've spoken about Fatih Aksoy in the past, and people rate him significantly higher than Fatih, and I think Fatih has done a decent job in those early European games and stuff like that. So, to say Alpay is rated even higher, and we saw against Altinordo, who were playing, I think, their best side. A lot of names that I recognized from their previous season, and I think they were playing good football. I think he played really well against that team. I think playing well against Altinordo at age 19. That shows, I think he really showed his quality in that game, and a lot of younger players played in that match, and not all of them, to my I didn't. Not many of them jumped out to me. Alpay jumped out to me. Now it's only one game, and I think Alpay has a future of actually being a Beşiktaş defender. But I don't.
For sure.
Maybe
Not next year, right?
But
Or-
for
or
me, it's
even-
more. I said it. I think I tweeted it. A kid like Alpay Çelebi at age 19, he needs to be playing games. He is the perfect example of a player that would have benefited from us having a feeder club, a really good feeder club in second division in Turkey, or maybe in the second division in Belgium or something like that.
Belgium.
That's something Alpay would have really benefited from, and which would have.
Or like the bottom half of the Belgian first
Yeah,
division, maybe.
maybe. I mean, and that's if he.
Or like, maybe the bottom half of the Swiss first division.
No,
you
not
know,
that,
something
come
like
on.
that.
But
Yeah, keep away from that 12
But,
team league.
I mean, that's the type of thing, if you can get him to get a full season of first team football under his belt, then he might be ready in 1 or 2 years to play first team football with Beşiktaş. Now with Enzo Rocco, the foreign limit is kind of something that jumps out to me. I think if they're going to go back to a strict foreign limit, I think he's one of the first players in the current squad that's going to likely still be here next year, or the coming 2 years. 3 years, for the foreseeable future. I think he's one of the more likely not to play if it's going to be a strict foreign rule. Mm-hmm. So in that regard, I think it's a little bit tough. But on the other hand, we don't have a Turkish central defender right now as an alternative. Alpay and Fatih are probably the two that we have from our own youth that could maybe fill that spot.
I mean, and I would say that I think perhaps because Domagoj Vida's like 29 now, right?
Yeah,
I think
he's turning
I would
30,
say
or is
that
it 80? Yeah, I'll
turning,
check it quickly.
he may have
I'll
even
check
just turned 30. But what I mean to say there is that I think perhaps Alpay is more on the trajectory of replacing a guy like Vida in a couple years, 2 or 3 years, whereas Rocco is very much, I think, the heir apparent for Pepe, who is probably a much, going to leave much sooner than Vida. Unless, of course, that Vida thing goes through in this winter, and this isn't even a conversation anymore. But I think
Vida's 29, by the way, and he's from 1989.
Yeah, and
he's turning 30 at the end of the season. So yeah, he's 29. So
okay, but I think the idea of having Enzo Rocco on the squad with Pepe, learning from him, right? That's a good thing, and if he's the heir apparent for Pepe, it's all the better that he's learning from the man himself, right? For a year or two.
I would love that, but I think
hopefully
I'm fearing that it's going to be only this season with Pepe. I really hope he's going to extend for another year.
Even just a full season, like under his tutelage, right? That's pretty good for. And Enzo Rocco is probably at the perfect stage of his career at 25, 26 now, where he's going to be able to absorb, and really see the value of some of the kind of, the professionalisms, that a 34-year-old Pepe can, I'm sure, pass along.
Yeah, but I think you're really
like
trying to see the positive in here. I think we have to be a little bit more critical than that. I think with Laic and Karius, I think it's difficult to see the negative because the deals are really good. And with Enzo Rocco too, I mean, financially, it's not the most expensive deal. He's earning a decent wage, but we didn't pay a transfer fee for him and all that. We sold, I think, selling Dusko Tosic was a great player for us. I think that made perfect sense. He's 33 years old, 4.5 million, you get in, so that makes perfect sense. Mate Mitrovic, I think it was kind of the time to either you're going to let him play or you have to sell him. And we chose the second option, and I think we recovered a decent amount of money on him. So really, to me, the question is more like for next season, we're not going to have 3 foreign central backs anymore. More likely Pepe will probably be gone, then you're left with Vida and Rocco. So I think in terms of the foreign limit, depending on what it's going to be, it's not a massive problem because we already got rid of Mate Mitrovic, we already got rid of Dusko Tosic. Pepe is probably going to leave. Also, getting rid of sounds so negative, and I really don't want to speak in any form of negativity when I'm talking about Tosic because he's really such a warrior and done great for us. But I think that in that regard, it's okay. Whether he's got what it takes to be our defender, I don't know. We haven't seen it yet. We'll have to wait and see there. I think that Domagoj Vida, for us, if we don't sell him, I think he's going to be a very valuable player in the coming years. I think people are way too harsh on him right now. Give him some time to settle because he's a quality player. You'll end up. I think people.
No, the only way I see him leaving would be if somebody ends up pulling the trigger, in haste this winter. Honestly,
or even
given
even
all the
next summer.
excitement and the talk from
he'll
the summer.
only be 30 years old, and for a central defender, that's really not that old.
And one benefit of this Nations League, tournament, cup, whatever league, I guess league, is that it's adding competitiveness to what would have been just sort of silly friendlies, and so we're actually seeing, one could actually maybe boost their stock through those matches much more than they would be able to in a friendly. I think,
certainly will not have done that by losing 6-0 to Spain, though.
Yeah, I didn't. I was gonna say that too. That hopefully that doesn't continue.
That doesn't
but we'll see.
Now,
and Spain is hot right now. Spain has been heating up. Actually, like you could tell, even in the World Cup, they were sort of percolating before sort of. Stumbling.
So then really, I mean, the question is then that we have those young players that we got. Do any of these transfers that we've done, does any of them seem like surplus to you? Or are there any that you see, could have done without that? Or do you think it's all?
I mean, the only one is really Rocco, and I think that's just in the context of, did we need another foreign player?
Yeah, but can you really blame the club for working within the contract?
And then furthermore, it's a free transfer, and you're prepping for what you see as an inevitable. You're getting a lot of interest in Vida. Honestly, it would be very hypocritical for me to say that they shouldn't have made that sort of insurance move, given their situation at the time. When I think throughout the transfer season, we were kind of hoping they were going to be more aggressive in that regard and make moves, and that they were delaying too much, and so. You can't say, why are you guys taking so long to do anything and not making any moves at all, and then say, oh, how dare you make that move preemptively? I mean, you know what I mean? Like, at a certain point, you have to do something. Like, if anything, it suggests that perhaps they were maybe, that all that talk about Vida stuff was true. Maybe there really was a lot of
I think they definitely expected to sell him. I think that goes without saying. But on the other hand, I think with like I said before, Talisca, they knew he was leaving. Fabri, they already sold, and it still took them way too long to get that replacement.
Well, yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. So, in light of that, wouldn't you rather have? You know what I mean? Like,
but
so
actually,
anyway,
there's just one more thing I would really want to point out in terms of that timing thing that really bugs me. Like, for example, the Karius deal got kind of delayed because of the festivities in Turkey. I think he could have played against Antalyaspor, and maybe that match would have gone differently there. I don't want to blame Utku for any of those goals, but like the first goal, for example, goes through his legs. That's unlucky, but maybe Karius saves that. If we don't concede that first goal, maybe that.
And plus, we talked so much about the confidence in the defense.
Yeah.
With Karius instills that.
Yeah. So I mean, that's the thing.
Yeah, that's annoying. That's annoying.
That's the timing, and I think that Karius deal could have been wrapped up earlier. I think maybe the Leitch deal was a little bit difficult. Especially I think if you look at the conditions we got Leitch for, that's being reported, unconfirmed. But if you're looking at those conditions that we have seen, 6.5 million permanent transfer, I think it's understandable that transfer went down to the wire, because I think it took a lot of negotiating to get that deal done. But the Karius.
Well, and we had Kagawa on the other. Like, I don't. The 10 was always there. There was so much weight on that move. They couldn't. If they had gotten just Emre Akbaba, for example, which, of course, hindsight 2020, right? Great, he's ended up doing very well, but
let's see how he does. In long term.
We would have been Beşiktaş's fan. Yeah, exactly. But at the time, Beşiktaş's fan base would have been so underwhelmed by that move, because we just lost Talisca, who's
a marquee player.
Kind of a talisman. I don't know, sort of poetic Talisca talisman. But anyway. But yeah, let's take this thing out because there's not much more to say.
No.
I will add. I do have a little hope for Guven Yelchin. I like the move. Those little moves. I don't want to talk too much about it because you guys really did a good job of talking about that with John O'Carr in our previous episode. But those little moves, those little low risk, low cost, young, maybe high reward moves, those are great. And I think Guven Yelchin, he shows some flares. I was intrigued when Şenol Güneş gave him playing time in an actual competitive match, although it was minimal already, because it's like, that's not like Şenol Güneş at all, especially not just the fact that he's a transfer who's not really had much time to train with the team, but he's so young. So, that was intriguing. Like, okay, he's maybe shown something to these guys on the training pitch. And then, against Altinoor, there was a nice little goal there. So
that was a technically really good goal because he controlled it really nicely and then he finished it very cleanly. It was a really good striker goal. And we spoke about this when we got this kid. That these are the types of moves. So there's a small chance it works out and there's a low risk. So, I think. With for example, Ozan Aydoğdu, who we got a couple of years ago from, I think, Dortmund, we gave him a quite high wage, but I think all of these kids are getting paid very low. I think those types of moves you can never really criticize.
So Kaan, before we wrap it all up, I want to bring you back to something that you said you wanted to talk about early on in the episode. You mentioned an interest in discussing Şenol Güneş's comments regarding the foreign transfer limitation?
Well, just in general, the transfer limit. I think I'm not a fan of this. I don't want to hear these. I don't want to hear constantly club presidents and coaches talking about the foreign limit, because I know that it is because it was brought up last year by Turkish Prime Minister Erdogan. That it's his baby, his idea, and it just feels to me kind of like them just trying to please him and saying what he wants to say.
Sycophants.
However, I think Şenol Güneş is getting a little bit unfairly criticized because, I still think he shouldn't really be talking about it, but I think he is getting a little bit of an exaggerated backlash from certain people, because he did mention that when initially it got implemented, it was good, but there were supposed to be these incentives that never happened, and I think that's more him criticizing the TFF rather than the foreign limit. I think that, for me personally, from my point of view, I think limiting the amount of foreign players you can actually play in a match, it's not good, because then you are creating that culture again where you have to overpay for Turkish players, who then in turn are complacent and they know they've got their spot and they know they're going to get a fat paycheck. And
And look, man, I need to say this. The quality of the Turkish league from top to bottom has increased so much because of smaller teams' ability to improve their talent base through, under the radar moves that have actually panned out in some cases too, financially, for them. So you can't stress enough how much the league has improved since that, because of that move. And then also, and I want to mention this briefly, I've not been particularly excited about the Turkish national team for some time. And it's, the discord has been well noted and discussed. I don't need to rehash it too much. But in watching this League of Nations Cup, Nations League, whatever it's called, for the first time, especially in this last match where they had the comeback win against Sweden, I saw elements of something that were very intriguing. And it should not come as a surprise to anyone that most of the guys in that squad are playing abroad. Right?
Yeah, there's a bunch of, and you have to look also at the stars of the match. Oğuzhan Özyakup, Emre Akbaba, those are two Turks that were raised abroad. Emre is French and Oğuzhan is Dutch. And they didn't even go through any training in Turkey. I think Ozhan played until he was 20. He played in England, and or 19, whatever. And the same thing goes for Emre. And then
and you're talking about training, but I quickly, before I get sidetracked, I wanted to say the guys that are on that squad right now, the bulk of the talent are playing for squads like Leicester in the case of Chaylar, Everton in the case of Cenk Tosun, right? You're starting to see these guys coming into these squads around Europe, getting good playing time there. How bad would it be for them individually if Turkish, especially the big three clubs in Turkey, suddenly had to scramble and try to overspend as we used to on these Turkish players? How bad would that be for their career? Because of course a number of them would come back for the financial incentive, and because it's comfortable, it's home, and these clubs are doing all right, but that would not necessarily be what would be best for them as individuals.
Plus those guys
or the national team, right? In that vein.
Plus guys like Sedat Güler would never have had the chance to go to Spain.
Exactly.
If that foreign limit was still in place.
Oh, come on. Yeah, we would have spent, $8 million on him, and that would have been our move for the year. Because, you know what I mean? Like that's what it did to our market. Let's just think of Mehmet.
Yeah, but if you look at the starting 11 even, the starting 11 against Sweden, Sinan Bolat, born and raised in Belgium. Kaan Ayhan, born and raised in Germany. Then you have
Cenk, Germany, right?
Yeah, Cenk, born and raised in Germany. Ozhan, born and raised in Holland.
In the Netherlands / England.
Hakan Çalhanoğlu, born and raised in Germany. I mean, half of that starting 11 isn't even from Turkey. So the problem with implementing a foreign limit is then you're just going to import foreign Turks again massively,
and stunt their development.
And guys like a kid like Cengiz Ünder. I mean, would Başakşehir have said no to 13.4 million euros? Probably not. But maybe the big clubs would have been fighting for him more, and they would have transferred him and paid way too much money for their own good. Okay Yokuşlu, I think he was allowed to go to Spain now for, what was it, 7 million or something, his buyout clause. I mean, is it what's best for Okay Yokuşlu that he plays for Galatasaray and 6 million?
Yeah.
Is it better for him to play for Fenerbahce or Galatasaray, or is it better for him to
and remember, it wouldn't just be him, right? Yeah. They would stockpile. So they'd probably get like him and Nuri Sahin and like two other guys at the same position that they'd be competing with, right? Like it's not, it's a horrible idea. I think it's like I don't want to go too deep into politics. I think we've been good about not doing it, but I think it's a cheap kind of ploy to sort of pull at people's heartstrings and their sort of nationalistic tendencies, and it's I don't like it. I think it's a gimmick. It's a political ploy. I don't like it.
I forgot to ask Jan about this, but that's something I really wanted to ask him and I forgot. But whether this is just a case of Erdogan wants to keep the money in Turkey. He doesn't want the Turkish clubs paying millions of euros to foreign clubs for foreign players. He just wants those same millions, but he wants them to be spent on mediocre Turkish players from the Turkish league, so that the money stays in Turkey. I think that's probably part of it.
And it's so short-sighted again, right? If you think about the development of the league abroad, it contributes to the development of the nation, and the scale of economy and football right now is such that it's just bad business to be treating the league like that. I don't.
I think if honestly long term, if you want Turkish football to prosper, you need the Turkish clubs to do well in Europe, because that's the only way. And I mean, he's not even looking at it that way. He's looking at he wants this money to be spent in Turkey. He rather has Beşiktaş spend 6.5 million on Emre Akbaba than they spend it on Adem Ljajic. However, what you need to keep in mind is qualifying for the Champions League. That brings in 40 million euros every, to clubs. And, you can play towards getting 2 permanent spots in that Champions League, maybe even 3 spots. Look at Portugal. They're not that far ahead of Turkey in the coefficient rankings. and they have they have 2 guaranteed spots, and then they have 1 qualified spots. That's so much money that's potentially coming into the country, and the clubs are going to spend that domestically in some way by investing in youth or whatever. So it's kind of short-sighted if that is the main reason.
There's no
other logical reason. There's no logical reason to implement the foreign limit right now
unless nationalism, economic nationalism, whatever it is so dear to your heart that becomes logic, right? And that's where I think that's like.
Yeah, but I mean, the logic that they're doing is that it's because of the national team. That is BS, because the current national team's generation is a direct result of years upon years of foreign limitation. Yes, we're slowly starting to evolve, because this new foreign limit has only been here this is the 3rd season, I think.
Exactly, but it's already paying dividends, right?
And it's slowly starting to pay dividends. Serdar Gürler gave the assist to the winning goal, I think. You know, he probably wouldn't have played for the national team if it wasn't for the foreign limit being lifted. These kids like Cengiz Ünder, who, by the way, isn't playing very well right now for the national team, and all those guys, I think we're slowly starting to see the change of the guard. And the team started turning things around against Sweden. When did the team turn things around? When who came off? Mehmet Topal, and I don't want to bash Mehmet Topal, but he came off, and then
he was miserable actually too.
He was okay. He assisted Hakan's goal, but he wasn't playing a very good game, and that was after he came off, and he was one of that last remaining. If you look at the starting lineup, he was one of the last remaining remnants of that
dark age
foreign limit generation. This new generation of players that we're seeing playing, that won that game, that turned that match around.
They're all foreign-based. Yeah. Those are either literally now or raised abroad, right? It's so
Cenk Tosun is a direct result of the foreign limit being lifted. He prospered from that. He got to play under Dembaba and Mario Gomez and develop and get better. And he got to move to Everton.
That's such a good
because of the foreign limit not being a factor anymore.
And to tie it all up, and I think this is a great way to maybe then segue to our conclusion here, but Alpay Çelebi said pre-season how much of an influence and a leader and a teacher Pepe has been for him on a personal level. And so if he pans out, like we were saying earlier, he very likely could, or maybe not very likely could, but he showed the potential of being able to. Again, right? Being able to bring in guys like Pepe, even though we have a Vida and a Rocco or a Tosic or whatever it is, right? Like being able to have those guys in our squad contribute to the development of guys like later on. I mean, if Alpay is a key player on our Turkish national team someday, I'm absolutely positive that Pepe will have played a pivotal role at a key developmental stage in his career. And, thank you. Thank you for taking down that limit for as long as that was, at least to provide that to us, maybe.
But one more thing, Sinan. When is the last time a Turkish club had 2 players that played in the last Euro final, a player that played in the last World Cup final, and a player that played in the last Champions League final, all in the same squad? I'm not talking about their careers Champions League finals. I'm talking about all in recent years. The last Euro, the last
unprecedented,
World Cup, and the last Champions League final. When's the last time that happened?
It's unprecedented. It's never happened.
And that's all because of that is in part because of the foreign limit, because Beşiktaş got success in Europe because of the foreign limit being lifted.
Exactly.
It's not fair to expect Turkish clubs to compete in Europe with clubs that do not have foreign limitations.
And it's not fair to say that that's not your goal as a football club, right? Like that's the goal of modern football clubs. Are you kidding? We're sending Şenol Güneş or Fatih Terim or whoever to be among the world's best coaches in the globally, and we're not expecting them to have the same goals as them. It's just it's
the only way.
Childish. It's ridiculous.
The only way to expect a Turkish club, Turkish football to enhance is true club football, because club football is still the single most important thing, and the national teams feed off club football.
The Nations League is literally an attempt to make international football more relevant because of how that balance has become skewed, because of how important the club game has become, how important, in particular, the Champions League has become. So it just leaves a bad taste in my mouth.
it's ignorance. And you cannot expect the Turkish clubs to compete. There's a reason why Turkish clubs' success has been so sporadic throughout the past 2 decades in Europe, because clubs, look at Galatasaray. They won the UEFA Cup in 2000. And
you need a miracle crap. That's the only way you could do it.
Listen, Sinan. They won the UEFA Cup, and because they wanted to stay competitive in Europe, they almost went bankrupt because they lost half of their great crop of Turks. They all went abroad. They all went to Italy. Hakan Şükür, Okan Buruk, Emre Belözoğlu, Umit Davala. They all went, and many of them went. Some of them went on free transfers. Others they got freeze for whatever. But they almost went bankrupt trying to replace those guys with overpriced Turks.
Exactly.
And with some foreigners, but that's the thing. If you want continued, consistent success in Europe, you can't force your clubs to pay 7 million euros
for Mehmet Topal, or Topuz rather,
or 9 million for Mehmet Topuz. That's not the way it goes. I mean, 4 million for Emre Akbaba, I think that's okay. That's fair.
Fine.
That's fine.
That's in this market, dude. It's this market that enables that.
Yes, I mean, look at that same player. If you have a foreign limit, there's no chance in hell you can buy him for 4 million. There's no chance in hell, and he's not worth more than 4 million. Let me point that out. Exactly. He might evolve into a better player at Galatasaray, and he may become worth more. But for what he achieved at Alanyaspor and the level of that club, no offense to Alanyaspor, but expecting them to fetch a 7-8 million fee isn't realistic. Look at Hans van Aken right now, who's playing for Club Brugge. They paid 4 million euros for him. That's a top fee in the Belgian league, and you shouldn't pay more than that for mid-table clubs players. Yeah. And the same should be in Turkey, and that's how it is right now. But if you're going to implement a way too strict foreign limit again, then you're going to jack up those prices again, and that's bad for Turkish football, because our clubs are already in financial peril as it is. They don't need this, and in large part due to foreign limitations and having to overpay for Turkish players.
Yeah, that's what got us into this mess.
That's partially what got us into this mess. I'm not going to put all the blame on
mismanagement. Yeah, exactly, but.
Yes, but it's definitely a big part of it. So let's close with that. The foreign limit, we don't know anything yet.
We at the Black Eagles podcast are officially not at all endorsing a change to the transfer. We do not want to see stricter limitations. I'm all about incentivization. Exactly. Yeah. Incentivize smaller clubs like Alanya to play the Emre Akbabas, to get them to where they can, whatever. Fine, great. But don't burden anyone in the process. Mm-hmm. That's not what this is about. The goal is to make everyone better, not to make some people worse. It's not going to be good. And at the end of the day, it's not going to make anyone better in the long run, because it's going to bring down the quality of the whole league. So no, I don't like it. Kaan doesn't like it.
Yeah,
I'm gonna use my beat privilege. Get that out of here.
But when is the last time that foreign top 5 league clubs, La Liga, Premier League, those types of clubs, Serie A, Bundesliga, whatever, when's the last time clubs from those leagues consistently came knocking for Turkish talents from the Turkish league? We've seen Serdar Gürler go, we've seen Okan Yokuşlu go, we've seen Çağlar Soyuncu go. Okay, he came from the 2nd division, but whatever. We've seen Cenk go, we've seen, who am I missing? I'm still missing someone. Enes Ünal, whatever. Yeah. We've got a bunch of young Turks that left Turkey in the past 3 to 4 years, and they all went abroad, and it's all thanks to the foreign limit being lifted, and they're going to top leagues. They're not going to Belgium. They're not going to Norway. They're not going to the Netherlands or whatever. They're going to Spain. They're going to Italy, and they're going to the Premier League. Those that's what you want.
Exactly.
That's how the national team is going to get better. You know why Belgium is so good right now? Because half their team plays in the Premier League.
Exactly.
That's what we have to. That's what we will have to strive for.
Exactly.
And we can still have our star players like Ozan play at club level at Galatasaray. At
How
Fenerbahce,
could
at Beşiktaş.
preventing your best players from competing with the best players more regularly and consistently be a bad thing, right? That's just counter to logic. That's all you really need to be said. That's all that needs to be said. Capping and preventing your best players from consistently playing with the other best players in the world is not going to help them perform against the best players in a big cup performing or big cup setting. It's a ridiculous concept.
With all due respect for Trabzonspor, if you can't consistently qualify for Europe, then your players are better off going to La Liga and honing their craft further there.
Exactly.
Because they have to play against better players. Because in Turkey, they only play against Fenerbahce, Beşiktaş, and Galatasaray.
Mm-hmm.
In Europe, in La Liga, they play against Real Madrid. They play against Barcelona. So Okay Yokuşlu going to Spain, that's perfect for his career and for the national team.
Exactly.
Same goes for Serdar Güler, who was playing at Osmanlıspor, but he got that chance to go to La Liga now.
And Çaylar, everyone, Cenk, everyone. Like, that's why Beşiktaş fans, as much as we love Cenk, we never hated the move, because you know it's what's best for him. I mean, and I didn't even really care if it was what's best for the national team. I just want to see guys develop to the best of their ability, to their full potential, and guys you like all the more. So, yeah, let's wrap it up. But yeah, thumbs down all around. Get that shit out of here.
Okay.
Well, and so this just in, we've got some news, and we held out long enough. Now I should warn you all. It's like 5 a.m. here, New York time. So I'm waning myself, but we held out just in time for some breaking news. Kaan, do you want to break it?
Yeah, Beşiktaş have just announced a new sponsorship agreement with the Mainichi Group from Japan. I don't think the financial numbers have been disclosed yet, but it was reported earlier already that it would be a deal worth roughly 10 million euros. And Sinan, you know a little bit more about this consortium or group, I think?
Yeah, so it's the Mainichi Group. They're a newspaper consortium, newspaper holding company or something of that sort. They own a number of papers. So their main one is the Mainichi Shimbun. There's also the Asahi Shimbun. They have the Yomiuri paper as well. So they have a number of fairly big papers in Japan, with the Mainichi Shimbun being the larger one. It's kind of like the New York Times of Japan, kind of in the middle of the politics, fairly objective, maybe sort of center left. Maybe that's appropriate for Beşiktaş as a sponsor, since that's a sort of club leaning theoretically. Anyway, but so that. They're a big company in Japan with a large presence there in the media, and so that's a very promising thing. Supposedly the deal's for like 10 million, and there's talk of them having some leverage with a player, maybe helping us with it. I don't know if we're allowed to do anything financially. I'll hand you the mic in that regard. But the one thing I will say is that it's a great move financially. Obviously, we need that money. That's half of what we were hoping to get from Vida without having to get rid of a player. And so that money is coming in at a key time for the club. And the potential for marketing in Japan is there as well. The last piece, I think, that would really solidify that marketing benefit, financial benefit, would be getting a Japanese player. And now, Kaan, I'll hand it over to you to what details do we know?
There's something on Haber 1903 right now that we are interested in Kagawa as part of this as well. This could be a possibility perhaps for maybe January, that we could maybe bring in Kagawa in January. That's a potential thing, I would think. And we spoke about it a little bit earlier in our episode that we could see Adem Laiç, because he is so versatile. We could see him move to the left. We could see him play in different roles. So, with the expiring contract on Ryan Babel, it's definitely not out of the realm of possibility to think that we would be able to accommodate both Kagawa and Laiç, because we've spoken about it. Laiç has played a very large part of his career on the left wing, and he can play as a 10. But that's the great thing about that transfer, and that maybe if the Mainichi Group can help us secure someone like Shinji Kagawa, or you know what, I would be super excited about someone like Nakajima. There's a couple of really amazing Japanese talents out there, like Inui, who we're not going to be able to get, of course, because Real Betis are, he's probably worth twice what they paid already. But
maybe on the right side we get Gotoku Sakai. We need a right back. Anyway,
it's definitely
let's
very
not
interesting.
let's not speculate too much. But that is great breaking news, I think. But anyway, wrap us up, Kaan. It's late in New York.
Yeah, it is. Everyone, thank you very much for listening. I don't know if we're gonna have an after the beep on this. Oh yeah, of course we are, because it's a home game. For sure,
stay tuned.
I think Emre will be. So stay tuned after the beep for that. And as always, you can find all the necessary information, social media, and all that kind of stuff in our podcast description. I don't really have anything left to say except for I really hope we win. Obviously, this is recorded prior to the podcast, to the match, but the end product will be after the match. So I'm keeping my fingers crossed right now for a good result on Saturday. And I'll be joining Sinan again next week. Maybe we can fix you up with a co-host for the match review, Sinan, and that will all be clear when you're listening.
We're tying it into this, probably. I'll keep it brief anyhow. But yeah, either way, and we always stress this, I'm gonna wrap it out with the old saying, because win or lose, it's always relevant. Go Beşiktaş.
Yeah, my dog it's a her. She just gets up and she starts walking.
I thought that was you laughing.
Hey guys, reporting live from Istanbul. Match day, another win. Good 3 points. Yeah, not really much to talk about. Don't really want to waste your time like Malatya players did. It wasn't a good game for us. I can say, I don't know, there's really not much to talk about the match, because it felt like most of the match was just all the players laying down and stuff until we scored. Of course, Pepe with the header. Feels like Pepe's been a better forward than any of our forwards lately, but don't know what to say. I mean, last 10 minutes, as always, our habit, we just have to have a heart attack moment. And I don't know what to say about the players. Like, it's just, this is not Beşiktaş, you know. Ozzy, he played good for a couple games. Yeah, he played very well in the national team as well, but today he was just terrible. He had his moments, but it's definitely not enough for us. I mean, he's just not playing up to his potential. But with our new transfers, I can say easily we don't need a goalkeeper. And we don't need a number 10, a playmaker anymore. I think we're covered on both ends, especially when they get used to the team. They're pretty good. Lance was I expected a lot more from him today, but there's a reason why he got subbed off in the 45th minute, and he deserved to be subbed off too. But Babel didn't really do much, but once again he got on the score sheet, and that's what Babel and Quaresma is doing lately. Really don't do much during the whole game, but they find a way to get on the score sheet, and we can't really see their bad sides because of this. Because if we start talking bad about them as well, what do we have? Not really much to talk about. The referee, he gave Medal a red card for, second yellow and red. I'm pretty sure just because we have a Fener derby coming up. There's no other explanation to that bullshit. But we're used to this, so it's not really much to do. The board needs to take action, and if they don't, it's going to be the same every single time. So can't really say anything because we've been living this for years. It's not new. Same thing with the fans. I'm still not happy with the fans. We're not what we were, and as a season ticket holder, it just makes me sad, really. But after 2 weeks, after 2 or 3 weeks having a home game, it was just a blast. Can't wait for Thursday, honestly. It's gonna be a good game. It's gonna be a good game. I just can't wait to see the new guys play again. As far as next week with the Fener derby coming up, hopefully, we won't miss Medal so much. But see you next time. Let's see what we do on Thursday. Cheers.
Beşiktaş International hopes you enjoyed this program.